Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Have you ever caught yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moments in your life you wish had gone differently? Maybe it was the way someone betrayed your trust, the cruel words that cut deeper than a knife, or the season of loss when the world you knew shattered right beneath your feet. Maybe you think about that one moment, the moment you'd erase if you could, and whisper to yourself, "If only that hadn't happened, I'd be okay. If only I could go back and change that chapter, I'd finally feel whole again." It's such a human thing, isn't it? To want to rewind the story, to edit out the messy parts, to delete the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the rejections. We all have those chapters of our lives we'd rather no one ever read. The times we felt too small, too powerless, too broken. For some of you, it might be the pain of growing up in a home where love was conditional, where you had to earn approval by being perfect or silent. For others, maybe it's the wound of a marriage that ended with more questions than answers, or a friendship you thought would last forever but ended in silence. And for many, it's the grief of losing someone who meant everything to you and being left to figure out how to breathe in a world that feels emptier without them. The truth is, when we think about these memories, most of us don't feel strong. We feel fragile. We feel ashamed that we still carry the weight of it after all these years. We tell ourselves we should be over it by now. We try to package it neatly, to hide it behind a smile, to push it down deep enough that maybe it won't follow us anymore. And yet, no matter how much we try to bury our past pain, it has a way of finding its way back into the present. It shows up in the way we second-guess ourselves. It shows up in the way we hesitate to trust again. It shows up in the way we keep apologizing for existing, as if taking up space is somehow too much to ask. And here's where the story turns, because the very thing we're running from, the pain, the wounds, the heartbreak, is the same thing that can become the deepest source of our strength. That sounds almost impossible at first, doesn't it? How could something that nearly destroyed me become the very thing that saves me? How could the heartbreak that made me fall to my knees hold the seat of my power? It feels backwards, upside down, like someone telling you that the cracks in your soul are where the light gets in. But here's what I know to be true. The moments that once made you feel weak are the very moments that prove you are stronger than you ever realized. Think about the times in your life you didn't think you would survive. The days when the grief was so heavy you wondered if you would ever breathe normally again. The mornings when you had to drag yourself out of bed, not because you were okay, but because life wouldn't wait for you to catch up. The nights you cried so quietly no one else could hear because you were tired of being told to just be strong. And yet, here you are. You survived every single one of those days. The evidence of your strength is not in the fact that you never broke down. It's in the fact that even when you broke, you still found a way to keep going. I want you to imagine your life as a tapestry. Every thread, every color, every knot tells a piece of your story. There are golden threads of joy, of laughter, of love. But there are also darker threads, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the seasons of loss. And so often we want to pull those threads out to pretend they were never part of the weaving. But if you pulled them, the whole design would unravel. The truth is, those darker threads give depth and contrast to the beauty of the whole. They shape the story into something layered, textured, and breathtakingly real. Without them, the tapestry wouldn't be yours. I know some of you listening right now feel stuck in those darker threads. You're carrying pain from years ago, and you wonder if it will ever loosen its grip. You tell yourself you should be further along by now, that maybe there's something wrong with you because you can't just get over it. But hear me, there is nothing wrong with you. Pain doesn't come with an expiration date. Healing is not a straight line, and strength doesn't look like pretending you never hurt. Strength looks like facing the wound, acknowledging it, and choosing to carry it differently. Here's what's even more powerful: your pain is not just a reminder of what you went through. It's a resource for what you can offer the world now. That heartbreak you endured gave you the capacity to understand others who are hurting. That season of loneliness taught you how to value connection when it comes. That betrayal sharpened your ability to see who truly has your back. Every scar is not just proof of survival. It's a well of wisdom, compassion, and resilience that no one can take away from you. And I think deep down, you already know this. There's a part of you that recognizes how strong you had to be to make it here. There's a part of you that knows the tears you've cried have watered the roots of a strength so deep, storms can't shake it. There's a part of you that knows your story, the whole of it, not just the pretty parts, is what makes you powerful. The truth I want you to hold on to is this: your past pain is not wasted. It is not meaningless. It is not proof of weakness. It is the soil from which your strength has grown. You may not have chosen the pain, but you can choose what it becomes. You can choose to see it as a burden that weighs you down, or as a teacher that shapes you into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. And once you make that shift, everything changes. So as you sit with the memories of your own past, I want to invite you to stop seeing them as evidence of your brokenness. Instead, see them as evidence of your resilience. You are not the same woman you were before those moments. You are deeper, braver, and more capable than you were then. The very chapters you once wanted to erase may just be the chapters that make your story unforgettable. And maybe today is the day you start telling yourself a different story. Not one where your pain is the villain, but one where your pain becomes the unlikely guide that led you to your greatest strength. For so many of us, the struggle isn't just the pain we endured. It's the way we've been taught to carry it. Most of our lives, we've been given the message that suffering quietly is a sign of strength, that vulnerability is dangerous, and that our scars are something to hide. We've been told that resilience means never showing weakness, that courage is about holding it together even when the pieces inside us feel scattered and fragile. And so, when we look back on our past, the betrayals, the heartbreaks, the seasons of loss, we see them not as teachers, but as proof that we were broken. That's the trap. That's the mistake so many of us make without even realizing it. It's common to believe that if we could just erase the pain, our lives would be smoother, lighter, easier. We think if we never felt the heartbreak, we'd be happier. If we never faced the betrayal, we'd be more secure. If we never lost what we loved, we'd finally be free. And because that's the story society tells us, because moving on is a virtue, because forgive and forget is preached as the ultimate wisdom, we pressure ourselves to pretend the pain never happened, to act as if it has no hold over us. But here's the truth: pretending doesn't heal. Pretending doesn't make the ache disappear. Pretending doesn't teach us the lessons hidden inside the grief. Instead, it buries the pain in a place where it doesn't die. It lingers, quietly shaping the choices we make, the way we see ourselves, the way we engage with the world around us. For many women, especially those of us in midlife, this burden carries an extra weight. Society often tells us that by this point, we should have it all figured out, that we should have mastered emotional strength, that we should have healed every wound, that we should be perfect examples of grace and composure. And when our inner world doesn't match that image, we feel shame. We feel like failures. We feel as though the cracks in our hearts are proof that we aren't enough. But here's the thing: those cracks are not proof of inadequacy. They are evidence of humanity. They are evidence that we've lived, that we've loved, that we've survived, and that we are capable of continuing to grow. So often, we carry our pain in silence. We carry it alone, thinking no one else could possibly understand, thinking it's our burden and ours alone to bear. We smile at family gatherings while our hearts are still raw. We laugh at work while our minds replay moments of loss. We offer advice and support to others while secretly wondering if anyone could ever hold space for the depths of our own hurt. And this, more than anything, keeps the cycle alive. The more we hide our pain, the more it defines us without our conscious permission. The more we push it down, the more it shapes our self-perception, our boundaries, and the way we interact with love, trust, and connection. The problem is compounded by a subtle, persistent voice inside our heads. The voice that says, "You shouldn't feel this way. You should have moved on. You should be stronger by now." That voice is relentless. It keeps us from processing the pain fully. It keeps us from acknowledging the depth of our experiences. It keeps us from seeing that what happened to us was not our fault, and that our reactions were human, valid, and necessary. And when we live under that pressure, we start to believe that our feelings are a sign of weakness, that our vulnerability is something shameful, that our past mistakes define who we are today. We start apologizing for existing, for breathing, for being human. The truth is, this misunderstanding of strength and weakness is what traps so many of us. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of self-blame and judgment. It keeps us from realizing that the very things we think make us broken are actually the things that make us resilient. But we can't see that when we're constantly looking at our pain through a lens of shame, when we're measuring ourselves against impossible standards of perfection, when we're trying to erase parts of our story instead of embracing them. It's also common to underestimate the subtle ways pain can shape our lives long after the event has passed. Sometimes it shows up in relationships we avoid, in opportunities we shy away from, in the fear of being fully seen. Sometimes it's in the way we overcompensate, giving more than we have, trying to fill the empty spaces inside with approval from others. And sometimes it manifests in quiet, unspoken doubts, the kind that whisper, "I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not ready." These patterns are sneaky because they don't look dramatic. They look like everyday life. And yet, they keep us tethered to a past we've been told to forget, but never really have. This misunderstanding is universal. Nearly every woman listening has, at some point, looked at her past and asked herself why she still feels the weight of it. And yet, instead of compassion, we often meet ourselves with criticism. We tell ourselves we should get over it. We compare our pain to someone else's and dismiss our own experiences. We minimize what we've endured to make others more comfortable. And every time we do, we disconnect a little more from the very strength that is quietly forming inside of us. The strength that comes from surviving what we thought we couldn't. What we fail to realize is that pain isn't a sign that we are weak, it's a sign that we are human. Struggle isn't a mark of failure, it's the evidence of our engagement with life, of our willingness to care, to love, to risk. And the shame we attach to our past experiences only prolongs the suffering. It keeps us from embracing the very moments that have the power to teach us, to shape us, to turn us into someone stronger than we ever imagined. Acknowledging this problem is the first step toward reclaiming power. It's not about ignoring what hurt us, pretending it didn't happen, or hiding behind a mask of strength. It's about seeing the full truth of our stories, the beauty and the heartbreak, the loss and the lessons, the pain and the growth. When we can do that, we start to recognize that our scars are not chains. They are markers of resilience. They are proof that we survived, that we learned, that we adapted, and that we are capable of standing taller than before. And even though it can feel uncomfortable to face this truth, to confront the weight we've carried for so long, it is also liberating. It is freeing to realize that our past pain doesn't have to be a life sentence. It doesn't have to define the limits of who we are. It can become the very foundation upon which we build strength, courage, and self-compassion. Once we stop framing it as something to hide or fix and start framing it as something to honor and learn from, the whole story shifts. The burden becomes a teacher, the wound becomes a well of wisdom, and the fear of facing the past becomes an invitation to step into our power. So if you are listening today and you feel that heaviness still pressing on your chest, know that it is not a sign that you've failed. It is a sign that you are human. And within that humanity lies the potential to transform what once hurt you into the fuel for your strength. The problem is not that you carry pain. The problem is thinking that carrying it alone in silence is the only way forward. Once we understand that, we can start to see our past differently, not as a series of defeats, but as a series of steps that have, quietly and powerfully, prepared us for the person we are becoming. The truth that so many of us overlook is that pain is not the enemy. We grow up believing that suffering is something to avoid at all costs, something to numb, something to hide. And yet, when we look at the lives of women who have endured the most, we see a different story. One that is far more surprising, far more liberating, and far more powerful than the narrative we've been told. The moments that once seemed unbearable, the experiences we begged to forget, are often the very experiences that teach us the most about who we are, what we value, and the kind of strength we are capable of carrying. It is counterintuitive, isn't it? To think that heartbreak, loss, betrayal, or disappointment can be a source of power. To consider that the very moments that left us feeling small, vulnerable, or shattered could actually be the moments that shape the depth of our courage and resilience. And yet, when we pay attention, truly pay attention, we begin to notice that the women who inspire us, the ones who move through the world with presence, compassion, and authenticity, often carry the echoes of pain in their hearts. Not as burdens, but as markers of growth, as teachers that have guided them toward a life richer in understanding, wisdom, and empathy. I remember reading about a woman who, in her mid-40s, had gone through a series of devastating experiences. She had lost her marriage unexpectedly, watched her closest friendships dissolve under the weight of misunderstandings, and endured professional setbacks that made her question her own competence and worth. For years, she felt as though life had turned against her. She walked through the world carrying an invisible weight, a sense that her struggles were proof that she was somehow failing at life. And yet, when she finally paused to reflect on the entirety of her experiences, she realized something extraordinary. She began to see that each loss, each heartbreak, and each moment of doubt had, in fact, been teaching her something profound about resilience. She noticed that she had learned patience. Not the kind of patience that waits silently, grudgingly, for things to happen, but the kind of patience that comes from enduring difficulty with grace, from understanding that life unfolds in its own rhythm, and that sometimes the most meaningful growth occurs in the spaces where we feel most uncomfortable. She realized she had developed an empathy for others that she never would have gained had she not experienced the depth of her own suffering. She could now recognize pain in others, not as a distant concept, but as a shared human experience, and she could respond with compassion instead of judgment. And she discovered that resilience is not about never falling, it's about learning to rise each time we do. The research behind human resilience supports this observation. Studies consistently show that those who have faced significant challenges, when they process them rather than avoid them, often develop greater emotional intelligence, stronger problem-solving skills, and a deeper capacity for empathy. There is something about confronting difficulty, leaning into discomfort, and allowing ourselves to experience the full spectrum of emotions that builds an inner fortitude that cannot be manufactured in any other way. Pain, when acknowledged and reflected upon, teaches lessons that no book, course, or mentor could ever convey. It teaches us about courage, vulnerability, and the way the human spirit bends but does not break. Think of it this way: a piece of clay is soft, malleable, and unformed. It can be shaped gently or pushed forcefully, and the marks it receives shape its final form. Similarly, our experiences of suffering shape the contours of our character. The harder the push, the deeper the impression, the more resilient and beautiful the final creation can become. And while no one willingly chooses to endure heartbreak or loss, it is in the endurance itself, in the willingness to face what is uncomfortable, that we uncover the power within us that is often hidden, waiting to emerge. There is also a remarkable paradox in this insight. The moments that once made us feel most alone are often the ones that prepare us to connect most deeply with others. Pain opens doors to empathy. It teaches us to listen without judgment, to hold space for vulnerability, and to recognize the common threads that bind human experience together. The woman who had lost so much discovered that, because of her own struggles, she could offer support and wisdom to others in ways that she could not have imagined before. Her pain, once a source of shame and isolation, became a bridge to connection and influence that touched lives beyond her own. I want you to picture your own life in this way. Imagine the moments that left you feeling small, betrayed, or heartbroken as seeds. At first, they seem like seeds of despair, impossible to grow. But when nourished with reflection, self-compassion, and attention, they can blossom into something extraordinary. They can become the roots of your strength, the foundation of your resilience, and the wellspring of empathy that allows you to engage with the world in a way that is authentic and powerful. The pain does not disappear, but its purpose transforms. What once felt like suffering becomes a teacher, a guide, and ultimately, a source of pride. And this is not just theoretical. Consider the countless women who have endured abuse, loss, or repeated failure and emerged with an unwavering commitment to themselves, their families, and their communities. Their past pain did not vanish. It did not suddenly become comfortable or easy to carry. What changed was their perspective. They learned to see the struggles not as evidence of weakness, but as proof of the inner resources they had always possessed. They learned that the depth of their pain directly corresponded to the depth of their courage. It is a remarkable shift when we begin to see our experiences this way. The pain that once isolated us can unite us. The mistakes that once shamed us can teach us humility and wisdom. The heartbreaks that once felt unbearable can become the foundation of empathy, resilience, and strength. The insight is clear. What we have endured is not a burden to hide, but a gift to honor. When we recognize this, our narrative changes. We no longer see ourselves as victims of circumstance, but as women who have weathered storms and emerged with a clarity, a depth, and a power that could only have been cultivated through challenge. And perhaps most importantly, this perspective invites us to stop fearing the difficult moments yet to come. We realize that the lessons of the past equip us for the future. Pain is not a signal that we are doomed to suffer. It is evidence that we are capable of growth, that we have already survived, and that we can meet whatever life brings with courage and grace. It reminds us that we are not fragile in the way we once believed. We are strong in ways we might never have imagined until we were tested. So, if you find yourself looking back at your life and thinking about the experiences that wounded you, I want you to pause and reconsider them. Not as scars to hide, not as burdens to bear, but as teachers that have shaped the contours of your resilience. If you allow yourself to see them this way, you begin to realize something extraordinary. The very moments that once made you feel weakest are now the moments that can make you strongest. They are the moments that have cultivated your courage, your empathy, your wisdom, and your authenticity. They are the moments that can transform your story from one of suffering to one of power. So now that we've seen the truth, that our pain can be the source of our greatest strength, the question becomes, how do we actually make that transformation happen? How do we move from merely surviving to consciously turning our past experiences into fuel for growth, resilience, and purpose? The first step is radical honesty. It starts with admitting to yourself, without judgment, the full scope of what you've been through. There is a power in naming the truth, in saying out loud, yes, this hurt me. Yes, I was broken. Yes, I have carried this pain for far too long. That admission may feel uncomfortable, even frightening. We are conditioned to avoid discomfort, to smooth over our edges, to appear polished, composed, and together. But here's the secret: the moment you speak your truth, even to yourself, you begin to reclaim it. You take ownership of it. You stop allowing it to silently dictate how you live your life. Once you acknowledge the pain, the next step is reflection. Reflection is different from rumination. Rumination traps you in the hurt, making you replay it endlessly, convincing yourself that the past defines your present. Reflection, on the other hand, allows you to ask important questions. What did this teach me about myself? What did it teach me about others? How has it shaped my values and priorities? Reflection helps you extract wisdom from experience. It transforms suffering from something heavy and unmanageable into something meaningful and informative. In this space, you begin to understand that your pain carries lessons. Lessons about boundaries, about self-respect, about resilience, and about the kinds of relationships and environments that truly serve your growth. Another essential element of turning pain into strength is reframing the story you tell yourself. We all have a narrative about our past, and often it's full of self-blame, shame, or regret. But here's the thing: the narrative is not fixed. You have the power to reinterpret your experiences. Instead of seeing betrayal as proof that people are untrustworthy or heartbreak as proof that you are unworthy of love, you can choose to see them as lessons in discernment, courage, and self-awareness. Instead of internalizing the message that you were not enough, you can recognize that you did the best you could in the circumstances you were given. Reframing is not about minimizing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about reclaiming your power and your perspective so that you are no longer trapped in a story that keeps you small. Action is the next crucial step. Insight without action is like a seed that never gets planted. Turning pain into strength requires concrete choices that reinforce your growth. This might mean setting new boundaries with people who drain your energy, walking away from relationships or situations that no longer serve you, or making commitments to nurture your own emotional and physical well-being. It might mean taking steps to pursue a long-held dream that fear or self-doubt has kept on hold. The key is to align your actions with the lessons your pain has taught you. Each choice, no matter how small, becomes a way to honor what you've endured and to demonstrate to yourself that you are capable of more than you once believed. Self-compassion is another indispensable part of this process. Many women carry their pain with a heavy dose of self-criticism, telling themselves that they should have handled things differently, that they should have been stronger, that they should have known better. But strength is not about perfection. It is about persistence, courage, and the willingness to rise after falling. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a beloved friend. Speak to yourself gently. Recognize that every mistake, every heartbreak, every challenge was navigated as best you could with the resources and understanding you had at the time. Self-compassion softens the harsh edges of regret and shame, creating space for healing growth and renewed confidence. Sharing your story, when the time feels right, is also transformative. Pain thrives in secrecy. When we voice our experiences to trusted people, whether it's friends, a mentor, a support group, or even in a journal, we strip the power from shame. Speaking our truth out loud transforms it from a weight we carry in isolation into a source of connection and empowerment. It reminds us that we are not alone, that our struggles are shared across human experience, and that our voices can help others who are navigating similar storms. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the bridge that connects our pain to our strength and our struggles to our capacity to inspire and support others. Another practical strategy is to intentionally cultivate gratitude alongside reflection. It may feel strange to think about gratitude when we're focused on past hurt, but gratitude is a powerful counterbalance. By recognizing the ways in which past challenges contributed to your growth, you shift your focus from loss to learning. You begin to notice the resilience, wisdom, and strength you've developed. You notice the moments of kindness, the unexpected opportunities, and the ways in which your experiences have shaped the person you are becoming. Gratitude transforms perspective. It allows you to see your story as a narrative of growth rather than only of suffering. Integration is the final piece. This is about weaving the lessons of the past into the fabric of your daily life. It's about living in a way that consistently honors what you've learned, that embodies the courage you've cultivated, and that demonstrates the strength you've gained. Integration may look like making different choices in relationships, career paths, or personal habits. It may look like practicing mindfulness, journaling, or creating rituals that reinforce your resilience. It may look like choosing authenticity over approval, courage over fear, or presence over avoidance. When we integrate our experiences into who we are and how we live, pain becomes more than something we endured. It becomes the foundation of our power, a compass guiding us toward a fuller, richer life. It's natural to fear this process. You may worry that facing your past too directly will reopen old wounds, or that embracing your experiences as sources of strength will make them feel too raw. You may fear judgment, vulnerability, or uncertainty, but fear is not an indication that you are unprepared. It is a sign that you are stepping into growth. The discomfort you feel is the same discomfort that precedes transformation. Each time you face a memory, a truth, or an emotion you've avoided, you strengthen the neural pathways of resilience. You teach yourself that you can survive and thrive despite the past, that courage is built in moments of discomfort, and that you are capable of wielding your experiences as tools rather than chains. Finally, remember that this process is not linear. There will be days when reflection feels heavy, when reframing seems impossible, when self-compassion feels out of reach. That is part of the journey. Strength is not a destination, it is a practice. Every day you return to yourself, every time you acknowledge, reframe, act, and integrate, you build the resilience that transforms pain into power. The key is consistency, patience, and a willingness to embrace both the discomfort and the lessons of your story. When you take these steps, acknowledging the truth of your experiences, reflecting deeply, reframing the narrative, acting in alignment with your growth, practicing self-compassion, sharing your story, cultivating gratitude, and integrating your lessons into daily life, you begin to live in a new way. You begin to recognize that pain is not your enemy. You begin to see that your past does not define you. You begin to carry your experiences as a source of wisdom, courage, and inner strength, and slowly power emerges, not the kind of power that dominates or controls, but the quiet, steady, unshakable power of a woman who has faced life, endured its storms, and now moves through the world with clarity, compassion, and confidence. Imagine, for a moment, what it would feel like to wake up each morning no longer weighed down by the shadows of your past. To take a deep breath and feel the air move freely through your lungs, without the constant pressure of old regrets, old fears, or old hurts pressing on your chest. Picture yourself moving through the world, carrying the same memories you once wished to erase, but now transformed into markers of strength, wisdom, and resilience. What once felt like scars are no longer signs of brokenness. They are evidence of survival, proof of courage, and testaments to the unshakable strength that has been quietly growing inside you all along. The transformation begins with a shift in perspective. You start to see your life not as a series of unfortunate events, but as a tapestry of experiences that, together, have shaped the woman you are becoming. Each heartbreak, each disappointment, each betrayal and loss no longer exists merely as a source of pain. They exist as the building blocks of a deeper, more profound strength. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What has this prepared me for? How has this made me stronger, wiser, and more compassionate?" In this reframing, power emerges, not a fleeting external power, but an inner power that cannot be taken away because it is born from the very experiences that once threatened to break you. As this transformation unfolds, you notice subtle changes in the way you interact with yourself and the world. You no longer feel the need to seek constant validation from others. You recognize that your worth is not determined by anyone's opinion, by anyone's approval, or by anyone's acknowledgement. You begin to protect your energy fiercely and lovingly, understanding that your emotional and mental space is sacred. You realize that saying no to things that drain you is not selfish. It is an act of courage, an act of respect for the woman who has endured, survived, and learned. You begin to set boundaries not out of fear, but out of love, for yourself and for the integrity of your life. Another part of this transformation is the ability to embrace vulnerability. Where once you may have hidden your pain, now you allow yourself to share it, selectively, with those who hold space for your truth. You understand that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the doorway to connection, empathy, and trust. You see that when you share your story, the full, unpolished, authentic version, you inspire others to embrace their own truth, to step into their own power, and to recognize that strength and struggle are not opposites, but partners in the journey of life. Your voice becomes a beacon, not because it is loud, but because it is honest, brave, and unwavering. You begin to notice a profound shift in your emotional landscape. The fears that once dictated your choices, the fear of being judged, of being rejected, of being vulnerable, lose their power over you. You have faced challenges, endured heartbreak, and walked through fire, and now you know deep in your bones that you are capable of surviving anything life throws your way. You respond to difficulty with a steady calm, a quiet confidence, and an inner knowing that you are not defined by circumstance, but by the choices you make in response to it. You have learned that life does not have to be perfect for you to be whole, and that your past does not limit your future. It prepares it. This transformation also manifests in your relationships. You attract people who respect your boundaries, who value your authenticity, and who honor the wisdom that comes from lived experience. You no longer tolerate toxicity, manipulation, or superficial connections. Instead, you cultivate relationships rooted in mutual respect, empathy, and support. You understand that real intimacy comes not from perfection, but from the courage to show up fully, with all your scars and all your stories, and to invite others to do the same. And in doing so, you create a circle of connection that nurtures growth, healing, and mutual empowerment. Imagine walking into a room carrying this newfound strength. People sense it before you even speak. There is a calm confidence in your presence, a quiet authority born from experience, and a warmth that draws others toward you. You have become someone who does not need to prove herself, someone whose value is inherent, not earned. You carry a light within you that illuminates not only your own path, but also inspires those around you to look within and recognize their own resilience. The pain you once wished to erase has become the very source of your power, your compassion, and your influence. Transformation also brings with it a profound sense of peace. You stop replaying old arguments in your mind, wondering if you could have done things differently. You stop holding on to resentment, understanding that forgiveness is not for others. It is for you. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it frees you from its grip, allowing you to move forward unburdened. You begin to live in the present with intention, making choices aligned with your values, your passions, and your truth. You are no longer trapped in cycles of regret or longing. You are free to create, to love, and to embrace the fullness of life as it unfolds. This transformation also enhances your sense of purpose. The lessons you have learned, the strength you have cultivated, and the wisdom you have gained become tools for living a more meaningful life. You see opportunities where once you saw obstacles. You respond to challenges with courage rather than fear. You pursue your goals with clarity and intention, guided not by what others expect of you, but by what your heart knows is right. Your past pain becomes a compass, pointing you toward the life you were always capable of living, the woman you were always meant to become. And perhaps the most profound aspect of this transformation is the way you see yourself. You look in the mirror and recognize not just the woman who endured hardship, but the woman who rose stronger each time. You honor your resilience, celebrate your growth, and embrace your imperfections as part of what makes you whole. You understand that strength is not about being unbroken. It is about embracing every part of yourself, including the parts that once ached, and walking forward with courage, authenticity, and love. This is the life that awaits when you choose to let your past pain be your teacher, not your jailer. When you embrace your experiences, learn from them, and integrate them into the way you live, you become unstoppable. You become someone who can navigate life's storms with grace, who can extend compassion without sacrificing boundaries, who can love deeply without losing yourself, and who can inspire others to do the same. The woman you become is a living testament to the power of transformation, the beauty of resilience, and the truth that what once hurt you can also heal you, guide you, and strengthen you. So, as you reflect on your own story, I want you to imagine yourself stepping fully into this transformed life. Feel it in your bones, see it in your mind's eye, and let it motivate you to take action today. Give yourself permission to honor your past, to embrace your strength, and to live in a way that reflects the courage, wisdom, and resilience that has always been within you. Your story is not over. It is only unfolding, and every chapter that follows is an opportunity to live from the fullness of your power, grace, and truth.